Hi everyone, this is Codemarvelous with A&R Black Hats, and you're watching Deckbuilding Derezzed. So on the third episode of Deckbuilding Derezzed, we're going to be discussing our first runner deck. It's a wizard deck that I've been working on for a little while, though this list is not entirely my own. The original idea for the Necromancer deck, which is what it's called, is 0 Hour on NetrunnerDBs. You can find him. I'm going to put a link to his profile in the comments below. The basic premise of this deck is utilizing the synergy of Wizard's ability to trash assets and other installed cards with cutlery events, and Gravedigger's ability to get a mill off of the top of R&D whenever you trash an asset or another installed card. So it really focuses on ice destruction and asset destruction as a way of getting extra mills from Gravedigger, and focuses on really efficient runs in order to set up a medium in the late game to get the last few points that you need to win the game. But ultimately, it's a mill and destruction deck. So I'm going to go over the cards. I'm going to give you some piloting instructions. I'm really excited. There's a lot of kind of interesting things in this deck that hasn't been seen other places, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Let's go take a look at the cards and see how it looks. When you look at the cards for this deck, it may appear at first to be a little kind of discordant, but it actually all comes together to create a really interesting mid, early, and late game strategy. So let's start with the ID. For those of you who don't know, Wizard's ID states that he has 3 recurring credits every turn for trashing assets. This is great against a lot of the factions that are really strong right now, like HB, who plays a lot of asset-based economy, NEH, and Replicating Perfection. All 3 of these corporations play a lot of asset economy, so Wizard gets a discount on trashing all of their assets. So, as I mentioned before, the basic premise of this deck is to trash assets, trash ice, and then get additional mills through Gravedigger for doing so. So, let's start with the events. So, we have 3 I've Had Worse. Hopefully that's not really surprising. They've more or less replaced Plascretes in a lot of Anarch decks, because unlike Plascrete Carapace, they're not blank if you're not up against a meat damage deck. So if I'm not up against a flatline deck, I can use I've Had Worse for a utility function of drawing 3 cards instead of just having the meat damage protection that Plascrete provides. So it's a 1-cost event that says draw 3 cards, and it states that whenever I've Had Worse is trashed by taking net or meat damage, you draw 3 cards. We have 3 Sure Gambles. Basic economy card goes in pretty much every single deck. We have 2 Special Orders. We're doing Ice Destruction. Special Order is the card that says search your stack for an Icebreaker, reveal it, and add it to your grip, and it costs 1. It's a criminal event, and it has 2 influence. The reason why we need Special Orders is that since we're running the Ice Destruction events, we need to be able to get out the breaker that we need at that moment in order to get us in. If we can't break the ice when we need to, we're going to start losing money, and our economy is going to start slowing down, and our ability to run is going to start slowing down. So special orders are really important to making sure that you can get in when you need to. We have 3 Lucky Finds. They cost 3. It's a double, so it costs 1 additional click, and it says gain 9. It does eat up 6 influence, these 3 cards, but it's really important to give us burst economy. We have a lot of click-intensive economy other places, so we need to make sure we have that ability to burst and make that really impactful run. We have 2 copies of Knifed, 2 copies of Spooned, and 2 copies of Forked. I'll start with Knifed. Knifed is a 1-cost event that states make a run. The first time you break all subroutines on a barrier during this run, trash that barrier. So, if we have Eater out or Corroder out, if we have a really expensive barrier like a curtain wall or a firewall, we're going to be able to destroy it, and then that is going to feed our other cards such as Gravedigger. Spooned is a 2-cost event that says more or less the exact same thing as Knifed. Make a run the first time you break all subroutines on a code gate during this run, trash that code gate. So, gets rid of some of your big code gates that you need to get rid of, like Toll Booth, that you really only want to have to break once, and other things like Lotus Field that strength can't be reduced. So those taxing pieces of ice that the corp is counting on to slow you down, you can get rid of them with Spooned and Knifed. Forked is really something I added recently. It's the 2-cost run event that says that whenever you break all of the subroutines on a sentry, you destroy that sentry. So I included this primarily as a way of consistently dealing with Archer and getting it off the table. In this way, I can make sure that I only have to encounter an Archer once or twice, get it off the table, and not have it be a problem anymore. So those are our events. As far as programs is concerned, I'm going to start with a utility program, which is the cornerstone of the deck, and that is Gravedigger. Gravedigger came out in Order and Chaos. It's a 2-cost virus that takes 1 MU that states that whenever an installed corp card is trashed, place 1 virus counter on Gravedigger. So the virus counter can then be used with a click in order to trash the top card of R&D. So this effect is incredibly potent with what Wizard does normally. Wizard trashes assets more cheaply. So essentially what he's doing is he's getting another mill off the top of R&D by trashing installed assets, by destroying ice. So this can create a tremendous amount of pressure on the corp, because I'm getting rid of their money with Wizard, I'm getting rid of their ice with the cutlery events, and every time I do that, I have clicks that I can spend just trashing the top card of R&D, getting rid of their options for the future, and potentially putting agendas into archives. So I'm able to threaten all 3 centrals, keep ice levels low, and have multiple avenues to victory. As far as Breaker Suite is concerned, we're running 2 Corroder, which is the Anarch Breaker that pumps for 1 and breaks for 1 for all barriers. We have 1 Cujo, which is to get rid of Archer primarily and large multi-subroutine sentries. We have Mimic, which was in a recent add. This is replacing a 2nd copy of Cujo, and it's a 3-cost, 3-strength, unpumpable Anarch Sentry Breaker that breaks for 1 credit, and it's really in there to deal with Architect and other low-strength sentries that tax, but I'm not going to be using a Forked on. In addition to that, we also have 1 ZU.13 Key Master, which is the 1-cost, 1-strength, 2-influence Shaper Codegate Breaker that pumps for 1 and breaks for 1. It's really important to have this card because otherwise you might be able to get locked out by a toll booth or a Lotus Field. It's there for the late game to make sure I can get through and get consistent runs when I need to. We also have 2 Eaters, which are the universal breakers from Order and Chaos that cost 4, have 2 strength, pump for 1 credit, and break for 1 credit. But after you break even 1 subroutine with Eater, you can't access any cards. Why is this important? Well, Eater breaks things more efficiently than Cerberus does. It breaks things more efficiently than ZU.13 does. So if I have a Spooned or a Forked in my hand, or maybe if it's early game and I don't have Corroder out, I can use the cutlery events in conjunction with Eater to break a piece of ice, trash it, and then jack out. I don't need to access cards. But even though I don't get to access cards, the run is still successful, so it still feeds cards like Medium, building up counters for a later, very impactful run after I've gotten rid of all of the ice. In addition to that, even though I know it's not technically an Icebreaker, we have 1 copy of David. David has 3 power counters on it. It costs 3, and each one of these power counters can be used to break 1 subroutine on a piece of ice that has strength 5 or greater. This is put into the deck primarily to fight Toll Booth and Archer if I get caught by it by surprise, and things like Grim and Firewall in a pinch where I just need to get in cheaply. And what it does is it makes it so that once Toll Booth is rezzed, if I have David in play, I lose the 3 credits from encountering Toll Booth. I use one of these power counters and Spooned, and I broke Toll Booth and removed it from the game for a total of 5 credits because I didn't have to pay to pump ZU.13 to break it. So David can add a lot of efficiency to our cutlery events. If I'm up against Blue Sun and somebody oversight AIs a curtain wall, I can just slap David down and break the whole thing. Or if it's a hard res curtain wall, I can use it in conjunction with Knifed to get it off the board. So, support programs, we have 3 Incubator. Incubator is a 3-cost virus that gains 1 counter at the start of your turn. Every turn it's going to gain a virus counter, growing over time until the corp purges. And for 1 click and for trashing Incubator, you can move all of its virus counters off of one virus and onto another. This synergizes very well with both Gravedigger and Medium. Medium because it gives me the ability to supercharge it, and if I can make 1 impactful run, I'm now seeing 3 or 4 additional cards instead of 1 or 2 with a base Medium. And if I'm locked out, if it's late game and I just need to get rid of some cards to finish them off, I can use Incubator, put 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 counters on Gravedigger, and then spend the rest of my 3 clicks milling cards off the top of R&D. So Incubator, we have 3 copies so that it really synergizes well with the other 2 viruses, and it's all about making impactful runs and impactful, highly disruptive turns. Going back over all the programs, I'm just going to give you a quick review of how much we have of each. We have 2 Medium, 3 Incubator, 2 Gravedigger, 1 Mimic, 1 Cujo, 2 Eater, 1 David, 2 Corroder, and 1 Zool. So that's our program suite. Hardware, we're pretty light on it. Like I mentioned before, we don't really need Plascretes because that's covered by the I've Had Worse. So the only hardware we have are 2 MemStrips, which give us additional memory so that we can have all of these lovely breakers installed and still have room for multiple viruses in order to create a larger suite. And Spinal Modem is a 4-cost console, so you can only have 1 installed at a time, that has 1 memory and 2 recurring credits that can be used during runs to pay for using Icebreakers. So, Spinal Modem increases the overall efficiency of our runs. However, there is a downside. If there's a successful trace during a run, you do suffer 1 brain damage. So why would I take that risk? Well, I'm not really going to be spending a lot of money on trashing cards, and a lot of my breakers are very efficient. So, once I have Eater out, especially, I don't really have to worry about being traced, because even if it costs me additional money to break something with Eater, I'm not going to ever really let myself get traced. So that's our hardware. Moving on to our last category, resources. We have 3 Tri-maf contracts, which is a 1 influence, 2 cost resource out of Criminal that says that you cannot use Tri-maf contract more than once per turn, and you can click to gain 2 credits. So in effect, it is a one-time use per turn magnum opus to gain 2 credits. It has a downside: when Tri-maf contract is trashed, suffer 3 meat damage. Okay, so why is this card in this deck? Because it gives me consistent clickable economy throughout the game, and I'm not worried about getting traced and having it being trashed, because I'm going to have a lot of money, I'm going to be able to get in pretty efficiently, and I don't want to use Armitage because Armitage runs out, and I find that this wizard deck normally runs very long, so I need economy that's going to last me throughout the whole game, and Tri-maf contract does that. And a lot of times, even if it is trashed, I'm going to be holding an I've Had Worse, so I'm not overly concerned about biting the bullet from somebody tracing me just to trash Tri-maf contract. But what it does do is it gives me consistent pressure ability. I can just get money continuously over the course of many turns and build up for super runs in the late game and make it so that I have the economy that I need to break the ice with the cutlery. We also have 2 Earthrise Hotel, which is a 4-cost neutral resource. It's a location. It gets 3 power counters on it when you install it, and at the start of your turn you remove a power counter and you draw 2 cards. So effectively you get 3 turns where you're going to have 4 clicks and 2 cards drawn at the beginning, which helps us set up this large rig and helps us find the things that we need passively without us having to click for it, so we can leave our clicks open for using our events, for lucky finds, or for setting up our rig. We also have 2 Same Old Things. The primary purpose of these is to recur the cutlery events in the late game. You'll notice I'm not running Deja Vus, and I'm not running Levy AR Lab Access, so the Same Old Things are there primarily for me to be able to get back the cutlery event that I need to win the game right now to get through that big piece of ice, so that they have to put more ice on the server. They have to respond to what I'm doing instead of doing what they want to do. Our last resource is Kati Jones, which is 2 cost. You can spend 1 click to put 3 on the bank from Kati Jones onto Kati Jones, and you can spend 1 click to take all the money off of Kati Jones. So you can only do either or in a turn. She's click-based economy, similar to Tri-maf. If I have a lot of tempo in the game, I'm going to click her as my 4th click if I don't need that 4th click, and just keep building up money and building up money, so that when I'm ready to drop the mediums, maybe when I've got an incubator that they haven't purged in a while, I'm going to be able to pull off 12, 15 credits off of Kati, install medium, incubate, and immediately make a super run that's going to enable me to win the game. Kati also just gives you that large burst of economy you need to reset after you've made a couple of strong runs and done a lot of damage. It's very disheartening to the corp for you to be trashing their ice and trashing their assets, and right when they think that you're broke and they have a chance to breathe and reset, you pull 12 credits off of Kati Jones and you're immediately ready to run again. So she's there for the long game as your second wind of economy. So this is the deck. Some piloting instructions. You need to make sure that you're applying pressure. You should always be checking assets and trashing them. Try to force them to put ice on assets, because then your cutlery runs on centrals are even more impactful because they're dedicating ice to protecting their money assets. In addition to that, make sure that you get a Gravedigger down early. You need to try, if you can, to get one down ASAP. Leave an Incubator down in the early game. It can become a breather for you because they're going to purge it once every 3 to 5 turns to make sure that you don't do a super medium run. So Incubator kind of buys you time because they have to deal with it. They can't just let it run, otherwise it could really come back to bite them. If you're up against Tagstorm NBN, I might not install Spinal Modem, but really against basically everyone else, I'm always going to be installing. You need to make sure that you're getting the use out of your abilities. So you want to be making a run every turn so you can get the recurring credit usage from Spinal Modem. You want to be trying to trash a card so you get to use the 3 recurring credits from Wizard. You want to be exposing ice. You want everything to be available to you so you know what to use the cutlery events on. And in the background, just keep clicking Tri-maf and keep clicking Kati Jones to gradually build up for your mid to late game where you're going to have control and you're going to be able to get the win by digging deep or by milling a lot of cards. That's the basic deck. It runs efficiently. It destroys a lot of cards. It mills a lot of cards and sets up for one final medium run to win the game when you're at 4 or 5 points. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you play a little bit of the Necromancer and tell me how it goes. I'm Codemarvelous for A&R Black Hats. I'll see you next time.